Oh, I thought I've got plenty of time. I'll take a mouthful of my coffee this morning. Serves me right. I got sprung. Um, Thank you to everybody who's been joining me on here. It's been such a delight to see all your names come up um, and and the chat that comes alongside of it. It's absolutely beautiful. I hope that you are all keeping well and taking care of yourself and doing what you need to amuse yourself while you're in lockdown, which most of you are. And of course, for the people who are not in lockdown, hey, Haley, oh my goodness, you're becoming my number one fan. Thank you so much for joining me every morning. I think you've missed once. Hey, Elizabeth, how are you going? Hey, Susan, how are you? Trying to find things to amuse yourself with, of course, because it can get a little boring, especially if you're used to having people around. If you're a bit more of an introvert like me, I don't mind having the time to myself, but even I get a little bit like, I went over and saw my daughter yesterday just to sort of to have a little bit of a break. I love being in the car and I miss being able to drive to places. That's been the hardest thing for me. So I'd normally just get in the car and go away for a weekend, or I don't know, this holidays I was going to go to Queensland to visit my sister. Um, Two. Oh, there you go. So you're still at work. So there are still people at work, and that's what I was going to say because I have that whole ADHD thing going on. I admire you people. Hey, Leslie, how you going? I admire you people so greatly for still being out and about. I am lucky that I get to do my job from home, but I see other people out and about doing jobs that are, probably a bit more risky. And I think, thank God for you people, because I don't know where we'd be if people just withdraw altogether. So just take care of yourself. Anyway, so today I thought, I'm going to read a bit from Dr. Dwyer's book here. So if you're Dr. Dwyer's book, Real Magic. So I picked up the book and I opened the page and I thought, Spirit is so good at doing this. And I want to read this to you. I don't know that I could read. You're still working too, Leslie. Yeah, for many people, I mean, the money is really difficult. In Australia, they've set up quite a few sort of bumpers for people who have to give up work. But my understanding is it's difficult to get money quickly. So it's been such a difficult road for some people. And my heart goes out to you still working in the community. But I wanted to read you this because I opened the page. Hey, Carolyn, how are you? Oh, look at your beautiful sunshine. Thank you for bringing that into my day. And I want to read this excerpt from the book, okay, because I thought it was really relevant for the times we're going through. And it's called The Big Lie. And the book is called Real Magic by Dr. Wayne Dyer here, if you're looking for it. Creating Miracles in Everyday Life. This part just opened to this. So I thought, well, obviously I meant to read this to you. So I'm just going to go with it. Hey, Annette, how are you? Lovely to have you on board. We grow up believing in so many limitations that after a while our lives actually manifest those limitations. We hear ourselves saying things that we accept as truth, when in fact they are misbeliefs that have turned into our truths. 7 p.m. In Australia, it is 8:57 a.m. Hey, Scott, how you going? As long as you hang on to the big lie, the truth of those misbeliefs, you cannot become a person who experiences miracles. Here are the 5 misbeliefs that permeate our culture. Keep in mind that each and every one of these is nothing more than a belief, an inner thought about our own physical world. The more you hang on to these thoughts and convince yourself and others that they represent the truth, the more you ensure that this truth will inhibit the flow of real magic into your life. Now, I'm not going to read every one of them, but I will read. Hey, Caitlin, how are you going? Oh, Joanne, how are you? From Adelaide. Oh, nice. So we have some Aussies on board. Okay, number 1. I can't help the way I am. I've always been this way. Then if you have that belief, then you aren't going to change. So he talks about, how that is for you. And I have heard that said to me before, from a very narcissistic person. When I asked them to be a little bit more thoughtful towards me, they said to me, "This is the way I am. I'll never change." That's just not true. Okay, so the second one is, "It's my nature. I inherited who I am and it can't be changed." Not true either. So this is about suspending those thoughts. "My personality is controlled by my chemistry and metabolism." Really? You don't think you can change that? Um, Yeah, I know. Look, I'm sure we've all been this way. I'm not casting any judgment on anybody, but what I do know is that all of these things are possible to change. And I do get people saying that, "I'll never find love. I'm too old. How am I ever going to find a job? I'm too old." Like, I hear those things all the time. And I think, well, if that's what you believe, then how are you ever going to overcome that? So I'm very aware that we all get conditioned by things. I mean, I've had a family member say to me before, "You're too old, you've already had enough relationships," and all that sort of stuff. And I think, why limit yourself by believing all that crap? Don't listen. You can do all this stuff. "My family is responsible for my personality." That's a really good one. Your family may have been responsible for perhaps giving you some ideas on who you were. That doesn't mean they're still responsible if you need to change those. "I can't escape my culture and times." That's a bit of an odd one too, isn't it? This is sort of really digging into things here. So I want to say there's a lot more information here, but I just want to say that you have to be really honest with yourself. You can change anything you need to change. You are not limited by any of those things. If it's that you are fearful of taking risks, if it is that you are, scared of taking a chance on something, if you believe that you are limited in some way, shape, or form, then it is very difficult to start thinking about change. But I think, at the end of the day, you can change anything you want to about yourself by being aware. I'm a great believer in observing, sometimes stopping and thinking, "Why did I say that? That was a little bit negative. What made me say it that way?" So I'm constantly aware of things. But I've done a lot of work to get to that point, and I've watched a lot of people. And I know that lately I've been talking about I can't think of his name, Joe Dispenza, because he talks about how to completely change yourself. I'm good, thanks, Scott. I hope you're well. So, it does take a little bit of work, but it certainly takes an understanding. First off, you can change things about yourself, but it also takes more understanding to be able to stop and ask yourself, "Why did I say that? Why did I say it that way?" And acknowledging that your ego has sent that forth. And it could be something you learned, and it is fear-based, Caitlin. We've all come from there. See, we've all learned about our spirituality. We've all been curious enough to dig deeper into who we are, to find out, how we can change things. I'm not coming from a place of judgment here. I'm not coming from a place of judgment at all. Like, I know that I have done the same thing over the years, and every now and again I'll go, and I've done it even on when I've been doing readings. I remember one day saying, "I'm really shocking with dates." And I remember coming off after that, and as usual, spirit will always, yeah, that's very true, Leslie. It's not easy at first, and the more you do something, the more you dig into it, the easier it becomes. And I remember getting off after saying that day and saying about the dates, because I can't always remember people's anniversaries, or I couldn't. But after a while, you start to realize that's a mindset you're giving yourself. And I remember getting off and watching that guy who talks about brain power and remembering. And I remember thinking, maybe I just in the beginning didn't want to remember the dates. And maybe I think I wasn't remembering them because it wasn't particularly important to me. And maybe somehow in my own mind, then it became a thing about not wanting to be, to remember. But I know that I know that from the way that Dr. Dyer here talks about it, because he says these are the 5 misbeliefs that make up the big lie that was thrust upon you from your earliest moments of consciousness. Now, if you had parents who said things to you like, you'll never amount to anything, you're a woman, you're only fit to stay home and look after your children, you shouldn't have a career, you don't need to have an education, what good is that going to do you? You'll never find a person while you have 3 children. So those are the sort of negative things that people say to you along the way that you sometimes question about yourself and perhaps do take on board as the truth. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got a few. I've got a few people I follow, and I read a lot, trying to read the comments while I'm talking. So I have a few people, Caitlin, that I follow that I really love, and some of them I truly and wholly have grown so much from. And I always talk about Eckhart Tolle or Tolle because his book, The Power of Now, was a life changer for me. I suffered really badly with low self-esteem, low confidence, and I had panic disorder, and I really had a very difficult time getting through that. And that was probably about my mid-30s. Up until that point, I probably was very meek and mild, very much a people pleaser. And I didn't really know myself very well at all. So I had a string of very narcissistic relationships before I started really understanding the journey of the empath. So I started to realize that I was an empath, which I guess changed things for me. And I had been very physically unwell, and I went to a person who I was advised to go to who did massage. And as it turned out, this person was very, very spiritual. And that was great because he named some of the things I was going through. And I went to him quite a few times for massage, and he mentioned The Power of Now, the book. And I read that, and as I said, that was a life changer for me. From then onwards, my life changed quite dramatically. I went out, got myself an education. Hi, Erica, how are you going? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love you too. And I went out and got myself an education, and I started making changes to myself, and I started to really understand who I was. And I think that that was the big turning point for me with the spirituality, because I'd been understanding, I'd seen ghosts and things as a child. I did a lot of sleepwalking, sleep talking. I suffered very badly, and my parents gave me sleeping tonic and sent me to a psychiatrist. And their way of dealing with it was by taking the door handle off the inside of my door and taking my light bulb out and leaving me in the dark, which was really hideous now when I look back. But I accept now that that was their idea of how they would cure me from this evil thing that I had. But anyway, so yes, you've been too. Yeah, so people have been through the same thing. So I know a lot of people are relating to this. But I started to really understand the psyche. I studied psychology, and then I studied social science. I read a lot, and I started to really embrace the spirituality. So I started reading a lot more, doing a lot of readings for other people. So I'd been reading my own cards with a normal deck, a cartomancy, a normal everyday playing card deck. And I didn't see tarot cards until I think probably I was in my 20s before I saw tarot cards. So I'd already started using a normal deck for doing readings. And I'd been doing that from probably in my teens. I did Bible study because I was looking for answers. You did too, Leslie. Yeah, I get that. I really do. I didn't understand it, and especially with the sleepwalking, and then, of course, being sent to a psychiatrist, like I was probably my parents thought I was quite mad, but anyway, and that was okay. No, sleeping tonic. I remember having sleeping tonic as a child. Didn't make any difference though. I still couldn't sleep. I'd be up all night waiting for something to come in my room and talk to me because I was terrified. Anyway, so I look now and I think, that journey for me has changed me in so many ways, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning. So if you think there's something you can't change, uh, start tuning in by meditating. That's always my advice to people. Start listening because the universe is sending you messages all the time. Your higher self is communicating with you. So I'll finish reading what he says at the end of the chapter. There are 5 misbeliefs that make up the big lie that was thrust upon you from your earliest moments of consciousness. If you find any of them familiar and if you're continuing to use them as a justification for your lack of self growth, then you must begin a program to overcome these illusions. This all takes place in the invisible place within you, where you have the choice to rid yourself of these toxic beliefs permanently by cultivating new and transforming thoughts to replace old beliefs. I highly recommend this book. It's one of the ones that I've hung on to because I got so much from it. So, yeah, look out for it. I have a lot of books that I read, but you're all too far away for me to loan them to you or to give them to you. So, look up that one. It's wonderful. I don't know where people's thoughts come back in the day. I look at things like the one of the ones I come across a lot, which we've all probably got misled into, and that's the idea that we have to work hard and prove ourselves. And we have to keep investing to make people see what our value is. That's been a really difficult one for me to overcome. And because of that, I've dealt with a lot of people who have what we class poverty consciousness, because as a child or as a young person, they were told they would never amount to anything. And of course, that becomes a cultural belief that this is the best you can have, which of course that isn't true either. And I'm learning to get past a lot myself. But I think for other people, it's really hard to understand how someone saying something can affect who you are so strongly, can really impact the way you live your life. If you're told you're not, fit to have an education, then maybe you trust that you aren't smart enough. And I'd left school I was terrible. I was very rebellious. I played truant all the time at school. I used to log in at the beginning of the day and log in at the end of the day and spend the day at friends' places. I mean, we spent the day drinking and smoking pot and doing crazy things as kids to try and escape what we had. I left home very young. I tried leaving home a couple of times before and it was really difficult, but after about 16, I found that really difficult. So I left home very young. I lived on the streets and I lived in cars. We used to break into cars and sleep in them and just make sure we got up early enough in the morning that people didn't catch you. Yeah, and that's exactly true, Leslie. To come back to that, the people who do the least seem to work their way to the top, and very often they're the more narcissistic people who have learned to, what I call, talk the talk rather than walk the talk. And then you think you're going to be noticed by putting in more work, working harder, trying to appeal to people's good sense. But of course, that doesn't work either. But that's about your own self-belief. And, I think a lot of us are taught that we have to really work hard to show people our value and show people our worth. Hey, hi, Moira. How are you going? Lovely to have you on board. So, yeah, if you think that there's something about you that you want to change, you sleepwalking too, Susan. Yeah, I was a great sleepwalker. I used to talk about witchcraft, apparently, which was, oh, hey, Lauren, how you going? Yes, you finally caught me live. So I'm on a little bit longer this morning. I thought I'd make the best of it this morning. Yeah, I used to talk about witchcraft and while I was sleepwalking, and I remember getting punished for that. So the whole witchcraft thing, of course, years later, I fully got to understand, but I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I was a bit weird, and I spent a lot of years trying to understand my weirdness. I guess, if you're told often enough that you're faulty, you start to believe that you are. So it's been a huge journey for me. It's great to have you on board. Um, it's been a bit of a journey for me, but then when I read other people's stories, listen to what other people say, listen to Dr. Dyer and things like that, I think, you know what? So many of us are the same or very similar. And I guess this is, thank you, Moira. Weird is beautiful. And I've embraced that now. Even when my children tell me I'm weird, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that now. And I think, Elizabeth, I agree with you. I want to say that a lot of the time I have people say to me, oh, I thought I was abnormal. I didn't think I was right. Because in society, we don't always talk about our abnormalities as we see them. They're not really abnormalities. Uniqueness is awesome, Hayley. I get you 100%. And I really, I love saying to people, you are so, oh, you're wonderful, Carla. Thank you. Um, I really, I love it when I say to people, why do you think that's wrong? Why do you think that's not how it should be? And people saying, well, you know, that's what I've been told. No, don't listen to what you're told. You listen, but you do listen, but you don't take it on board. Like, you know, there's nothing wrong with being different, unique. It's wonderful. And I think it does, Leslie. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We're not alone. We're all similar. We're all, you know, have the same ideas. It's just that society knocks it out of you because it's so much easier to have people working like robots on the matrix. Like, that's how it works. You know, if you can knock people's uniqueness out of them, if you can knock people out from saying what they believe or what they, you know, you don't have to listen to everything. You have to be smart about what you listen to because not everything will resonate with you. But it's not always, yes, I had a poor family too. It's not always as it is. And, you know, opening up to the fact that you can be who you are, you know, that's it. You can be your own unique self. But if there's something about yourself that you're questioning and you're not really sure whether you know, it's something you want to be or something you want to change, then you can change it. You can change anything you want to about yourself. There's no limits. And I get that, Moira. I do. Other people put you down because they're afraid. I get that. I do. You know, especially if you're very spiritual. You know, sometimes I forget and I try really hard not to scare people. And I do forget. And sometimes in conversation, you know, something will come up and I'll say what spirit's saying just straight off the bat because I think, oh, that's just part of the conversation. And they look at me as if to say, how did you know that? And then I have to sort of sidestep. And I used to be so scared of telling people that I could read their energy. And sometimes I don't want to scare people by looking into something if I'm not supposed to be looking there. But every now and again, yes, something comes out and I think, oh, then it makes me look a bit creepy. And I used to do it to my kids all the time. So I've made sort of quite a lot of predictions throughout my life that have obviously come to pass because they're predictions. And my kids have got a little spooked out by it. So my kids think I'm quite weird too. And that's okay. I'm cool with that. I've got my children to embrace their own weirdness. Um, so Leslie, you've experienced the same. I know it's really strange because I've actually said things to people, and some people, when I get to know them a little better, yeah, I know, but Caitlin, I know one can't help getting the messages, and I get that. But sometimes people are really unnerved by it, and the last thing I would ever do, believe me, I would never want to hurt someone. I would never want to frighten someone. But sometimes you can't help it. You just say what comes through. And I've always been the type of person to open my mouth to change feet. I can't help it. And well, I can help it, can't I? Because I can change if I want to. But I actually think that's cool. And sometimes I do say things and then think afterwards, well, I should have been a little bit more careful about how I put that. And so I am a little bit, I'm very aware and I do observe. So if I do something that I feel is not quite kosher, I do try to be aware of that next time. But anyway, I will close off today. I've been on for the longest today, so it's been about 25 minutes. I want to say thank you to all you beautiful people who've joined me today. It's been a lovely conversation. Oh, thank you, baby girl. If I can, put a little bit of joy in someone else's day and repay you for the joy you put in mine, that's all I want to know. Yeah, I know, Caitlin. And people do. People do. I had a friend who would always be very open about the spirituality, but I do try to be a little bit careful about what I say to people. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day yourself, Scott. Lovely to see you, Elizabeth. And if I've missed anybody, Haley, Moira, Leslie, baby girl, Caitlin, thank you all for joining me today. And yes. Oh, Lauren, that's just beautiful. Lauren said meeting you 2 years ago was a turning point. Thank you so much. That was before I did the channel too, by the sounds of things. So that's pretty amazing. Hey, Joanne, how are you going? You're very welcome, my darling. You're very welcome. And thank you, Erica. I thank you all for being so beautiful, wonderful, and supporting me. We have such a gorgeous, supportive community amongst us. So thank you. I want to do more lives. Now I feel comfortable. I was really scared about doing these to start with. They frightened me a little bit. But anyway, I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Stay safe. I love you all. Mwah.